Welcome back. How to change the oil in a 2012 FJ Cruiser. Here's your dipstick so you can check the level of your oil if you need to after you fill it. Here's where you fill your oil. They make it pretty easy because on my FJ they have what type of oil? 0W20. And I believe they specify full synthetic. That's what we're going to be using today. Here are some of the things that you need. You need a 12 millimeter socket. That will get the rock guard off. And the rock guard is right here. And it's held in place with 4 12 millimeter bolts. So we'll take that off in a moment. You also need a special oil filter wrench. You need a crush washer if your washer needs to be replaced. You'll need an oil filter cartridge that comes with the gaskets and comes with that tool right there to drain the cartridge housing. And you will need oil. 0W20 oil, as we've already said. And you may be laughing because this says Amazon Basics. But don't you know that this oil is actually made by Warren Oil Company, which makes tons of oil, including the Kirkland brand from Costco, including the Walmart SuperTech brand. And this has passed the standards and even surpassed many of the standards out there. So this was at the time of purchase about $22 for 5 quarts. Can't remember exactly what the FJ holds. We'll look at that later. And you'll need something to catch your oil in. The other thing that you'll need to take off your oil filter housing is probably an extension. You could also just use your ratchet. All right, let's get started and drain the oil. Now, as I stated, this rock guard comes off relatively easily. These 12 millimeter head bolts you can take out right here, one at a time. Be careful not to use an impact driver in there because these will strip. Don't ask me how I know. But I actually have one that has a 13 millimeter head on it. And this 13 millimeter head, I've marked it with a little bit of gray paint that I always remember which one it is. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4. And then once you take it off, this will also swing out of the way. One thing you want to make sure is that you lift up your vehicle enough. I'm probably going to have to stop and do this. So this rock guard will have room to swing down and out of the way because it's in here also with a couple of hooks that hook it into place. I was able to get it off, but it would have helped if I had a little more height clearance. So this swings down, and then you can unhook these front 2 hooks after you get that 4th bolt out. So the process is to let undo the first 2 bolts, undo the back bolt, and then when you have the last back bolt, you hold it because it's going to fall down at an angle and then bring it out. So now that you've got that off, what you want to do is you want to look for this cover back here on this other rock shield. This cover right here comes off so you can access and drain the oil. And those are also 12 millimeter. So we'll take this panel off and then we'll be able to see our drain plug. Now that we've got that off, you can see your drain plug. The drain plug is a 14 millimeter socket, and you will need an extension to reach up in there for that. And you'll want to get your pan ready now. Drain the oil first from that plug, and then we'll move back up to the filter cartridge. All right, we've got the oil drained from the main pan, and then we also put the 14 millimeter plug back in. You can always put a new crush washer in if you need one, and those are available at any auto parts store. And now we're going to move on up because we put the little shield back on too back there with the 2 12 millimeters. Now we're going to move back up to the oil filter, and we're going to take this whole filter off filter housing off. But it's important to note that it's got this plug in it first. So you first put your 3/8 ratchet in that hole and you loosen it up, which I did off camera. And then when you drop that, you'll see a few drops. That's not going to be all that's in there in this housing. The process, now you could go ahead and you could take off this whole filter housing with the tool that I'll show you in a moment. But here's what you do is you take this that comes with your filter cartridge kit and you push this in and it should drain. I'll do it with 2 hands. This is a good time to mention that I absolutely hate this design. I wish they'd never gone away from the metal filters. So you press that up in there, and if you get it to catch, it will drain the oil filter housing. If not, you start to press it in and it runs all over your hands. So I've done many of these oil changes on our 3 vehicles that have these, and they're a pain in the butt. So now I'm going to get my oil filter housing tool. Now I'm going to get my oil filter tool. You'll see the one that I have. You can get these online, or you can get any other part number that matches up to that. And this essentially goes up on your oil filter, and you lefty-loosey take it off. It also fits a 3/8 ratchet. So now I'm going to do that. Now I'm going to put that over that oil filter housing and take it out. And I'm going to be ready for the rest of the oil to drain out of it, because that plug, terrible design, did not work great again today. So now I've got this loosened up, and I'm going to show you the continued mess that these things make. Now's a good time to say, well, Jason, why do you change your own oil? Sure seems like a mess. And it doesn't save that much money. Well, it saves no money. My time's worth a lot more than this. Every now and then I do change my own oil, because it gives me a chance to inspect everything else under here and ensures that it was changed right at least every few times. So that's why I do it. The other times I just go and pay for it to be done, drop off one of our cars and go pick it up. That's the easiest way. But that does not ensure that your oil change is done correctly. You can look behind and see that there's other things you can't see if they did right. So you can only assume. You can take it to a trusted mechanic or a trusted oil place and hope for the best. But a lot of times when I'm under here, I'll see things that need maintenance or other things. And that's the case with all 4 of our vehicles. So now I've got this loosened up. I'll take this off and continue to make a little mess here and let it fall into the drain pan. So I love having a big drain pan. It takes into account things like this. Then you don't get much of a splatter. Get that off the driveway. Kitty litter makes for a great thing to put on that if you have kitty litter. All right, so let's take a look at our drain housing now, what it looks like when you take these things out. Shift this over to some cardboard or something. All right, here's what we have here. We've got this oil filter cartridge, which we're going to replace. Should just pull straight out. It's a lot easier with 2 hands. So we've taken the filter out. Of course, we'll put this one right back in a moment to replace it. You can always hold it side by side, make sure you got the right one. And there's 2 gaskets that you want to pay attention to. The big one goes around the base right here. So you can replace that. Make sure you get that out very carefully. You don't want to gouge anything. And then the small one goes on the plug, on a metal plug that goes up into the housing. So, and now you see why I put this into this. There, that'll be fine. That'll be all fine right there. Okay, so the small one goes right in to the lip right there. Okay, so that's how that works. All right, so we put the new gasket and then we put the plug back in, the small one, and then we took this big one right here and we put it back in. If you'll look right here, they've got a little place right here for your screwdriver where you can go in there without gouging anything. And then I put the oil filter back in. So now I'm going to reverse the steps and I'm going to put this right back up in there, righty-tighty. And then I'm going to put my And then we'll be good to go to refill. Yeah, hand tighten, that really doesn't cut it. You got to put the tool back on there and give it several spins, and then you'll feel it bottom out. You don't want to over tighten it. That gasket's going to do just great. Then you want to give it a good clean up with a paper towel, and then put the rock shield back on by engaging these front hooks and then swinging it back up into place and putting those 4 bolts back on. I'll give you a good look at that rock shield. You'll see that tab that I'm talking about right there. There's a hook that goes in there first, and there's a hook that goes in there, and then this just swings up, and you'll put one of the 12mm bolts in the back. Here's a pro tip. While you got this extra oil out here, rub any of these rust spots that you see. Rust is not bad in the southeast, but up in the north you may have too much rust. All right, now we're done with the bottom. We're going to move back up to the top. We're going to put 6.4 quarts in. That's what it calls for of this 0W20. While you're doing this, look at all your other levels. You've got power steering fluid here. Make sure that it's in the right spec there. Look at your coolant level. Make sure that's right in the right spec. Mine might be just a little low, but still reading fine. Look over here at your brake. You can't tell what this is until you take this off. And you can see whether it's in the line that's right there. It looks good. Look at your battery terminals. See if they're clean. If they're not, clean them. I've got another video on that, I believe. If you see it all crusted up and everything, basically a little baking soda and water will get all that crust off. You might even have to take the terminals off. Everything looks pretty good here. You could also check the condition of your air filter here. That's just some general maintenance. Let's get back to what we were doing, and let's put the oil in. Well, we've got 5 quarts in, and we'll put the other 1.4 in from another bottle that I had. Then you take your dipstick and you look how it's reading. Reading a little bit high, but as soon as I start it and it works in the oil filter, it'll be just right. And that concludes this video. All we've got to do now is clean up the mess. Like I said, it's good to change your own oil every once in a while. Be familiar with the vehicle. If you learned something new, please comment below. If you can teach me something new, please comment below. Like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.